The mayoral candidate forum. My name is Rich Wardner. I'll be your moderator tonight. It wasn't the job that I was looking for. I just happened to be on the Government Affairs Committee at the Chamber, and I got the short straw on this particular debate, and I'm very honored to be the moderator for you candidates. I want to thank everybody for coming. We live in a day when we're looking for good people to step up to the plate and run. And I think that in our case, in Dickinson, we're very fortunate. We have 3 candidates that will do a good job no matter who is elected. You know, sometimes we have no candidates other than maybe one, or they're not good candidates. We're very fortunate and blessed to have good candidates. I want to thank all 3 of you for stepping up to the plate and running for this important position in our city. So with that, we're going to get going because we want to hear from you. So we're going to start. Here are the ground rules. They will get 3 minutes on opening remarks. They will all have to answer the same question, and in the end they will get 2 minutes to give their closing remarks. So with that, Mr. Altman will start with his opening remarks. Mr. Altman.
Thank you, Rich. I want to thank everyone for attending tonight. I want to thank the Chamber for putting this on. I think this is democracy in action. It's where you get to draw your own conclusion on each of the candidates as we present our information, as we answer questions. To give you a little background on myself, I was first elected to the City Commission in 2010. The reason I ran then was I looked at the then current demographics of the City Commission, and I didn't feel like it was representative of maybe my age group and even younger. And at that time we were looking at about $29 million in projects, and I thought, well, those will fall on my shoulders in the coming years. Who knew in 2010 that Dickinson would go through the largest expansion in its history? The last 6 years have shown incredible growth and incredible challenges for our community. 2 issues are facing our community as we move forward. Right now we're about $100 million in debt from projects and infrastructure that were needed in order for our community to expand. I think one of the biggest challenges moving forward is going to be financial. With $100 million in debt, we have a yearly payment of about $4.5 million. It's about what property tax brings in each year. So that's going to be a big challenge moving forward, being able to not only service the debt, but continue with the services that you expect as citizens. And there's still more projects ahead that we're going to need to complete in order to maintain the quality of life here in our community. The second issue is having a controlled and well thought out plan for expanding our community moving forward. When we started to see the oil boom coming towards Dickinson, the City Commission developed a 2035 roadmap that helped us identify areas of growth and needs in the community. I think it's going to be really important moving forward having somebody as president of the commission that knows how that plan was developed, what went into that thought process, where are we at in that process. A lot of things got ramped up during the expansion. We're probably at 2020 as far as some of the projects are concerned that we would have liked to have delayed but that we couldn't. So it's going to be very important to have somebody that knows the history of what's been done and what needs to happen moving forward. So if you can remember 2 issues about my platform, it's financial. As a Edward Jones financial advisor and as a business owner, I think that I have a very good grasp of how to continue with the balanced budget process that we maintained even through that expansion. And the other thing would be controlled and diligent growth of our community to retain that quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you, Clayton. Next we'll have Rod Landblum. Rod?
appreciate the opportunity to be with you tonight. It's kind of the inaugural for a lot of activities, especially after the national scene. It gives a little reprieve in that regard. But being a retired individual now for a year, I've looked back on my background and my career and looked at the fact that I'm able to offer Dickinson and Southwest North Dakota about 40 years of experience in county and city planning, development, and its own relations. I was a top vote getter back in 2010 for the City Commission, which was a short-term operation for me because of a conflict of interest. But I think that I am able to provide you a direction in this regard as far as where we've been and where we can go with this. There are a couple of items that I want to put out. Number one is, as you notice, I'm here for the sympathy vote. So, the other thing is that following the 10 years of both President Johnson and Jackson, we're going to find that they laid some real solid groundwork for us. You know, they gave us some real leadership into growth and how we should manage it. It was not without its problems, and hopefully I would be able to continue those type of developments in a positive realm, and then also try to correct a few of the shortcomings that we've come across. My primary emphasis in this campaign is going to deal with the integrity of our single-family residences. We've seen the property values increase and accelerate, but at the same time, we've seen conflict of interest in land uses without any direct transition zone being developed or any type of planning as far as, or excuse me, enforcement of planning when it came to the actual development. We'd like to be able to protect some of those things because those are a one-time investment in our lifetime. The other thing is that we have to take a look at the way we expand. Community has grown in the last 5 years, expanded its boundaries, et cetera, but we've left a lot of infills that still have to be developed. Before we get into too much expansion and going too far out of our jurisdiction, we have to take a look at our inside of our boundaries, the infrastructure that's available, the aging factor of those infrastructures, and how we deal with those, as well as the expansion of the services that are required. In that regard, we take a look at the taxation level, trying to maintain a constant and consistent taxation level for our property taxes as we go along. Another element that I'm looking at is a continued positive working relationship with Stark County Commission. Right now, we have 3 of our county commission districts lie within the city of Dickinson boundaries. And I think it's important that that type of relationship be enhanced and played upon for our advantage as well as the counties. I think that we take a look at what happens within the county obviously affects the city of Dickinson. What happens in Southwest North Dakota obviously affects the the city of Dickinson. So in that regard, we're taking a look at some real major activities. As Clayton alluded to, the fiscal decline in the revenues is going to be a major challenge, and how we can use common sense in applying those budgets and trying to execute the needed leadership and foresight into handling those financial situations without putting an undue burden on the tax basis that we have. We take a look at the economy in the area. We want to make sure we maintain a diversified economy. We've been here before, back in the 80s. We've gone through the boom and bust. There's got to be lessons that we learn along the way that how to diversify, take advantage of what we do have. Also, as I close out here, though, I would like to paraphrase a Ronald Reagan approach when he was debating Senator Mondale for campaign, is that I promise I will not use the age factor of the youth of my opponents as an issue in this campaign. Thank you.
Thank you, Rod. And now we'll move to Scott Decker. Scott?
I too would like to thank the Chamber of Commerce and Senator Rich Wardner for putting on this debate. And I would like to thank all the members of the community for coming out tonight. It's quite the turnout from the last debate we had. when I was running for city commission a couple of years ago. We only had a couple of people in the crowd. For those of you that don't know me, I am Scott Decker, and I grew up here in Dickinson, graduated Trinity High School and Dickinson State University. I spent 21 years in the military. I'm retired military, and what that affords me is the opportunity, being retired, to dedicate myself to my family and my community, and a lot of fishing. My family, I've been married to my wife Shelley for 26 years, and we have 2 adult children. Jake, who's a pharmacist, and our daughter Elena, who is a firefighter and EMT. I come here today not with an agenda, but a promise. And my promise is to dedicate myself to the citizens of Dickinson and remain conservative in our spending while we're doing improvements to the infrastructure. That we build and develop to improve the quality of life for our citizens, and a promise to work to develop a more diverse economy. And I think that's very important, having that diverse economy. And it proves it with what oil just did in the last year and a half. And it just shows that we have to have that diverse economy and find those opportunities out there that exist to bring in new manufacturing, bring in possibly new retail to this community. I promise to dedicate myself to the safety of this community. I think that is paramount. Supporting our law enforcement, our fire services, and making sure they're fully funded, not only in the equipment they need and the staffing, but in the training. And we provide them with the adequate facilities and the adequate time to go and train so their skills are kept current, and they provide that safety for us here in the community. And I promise to be your voice, be it here, the state legislature, or when working with federal officials. That is one of the things. I'm on the airport commission, and we get to deal a lot with federal officials. And Senator Hoeven, Senator Heitkamp, they come in a lot because the airport's a big project. And that's something that I think is very important to our future. And in going down to the legislature and talking to them, letting them know fully how oil has impacted us. And then also, I want to work with the state legislature to get us a new armory. Because sometimes those people are overlooked, and they're the first people we look at when it comes to responding to a tornado or such. Our challenges are numerous, and I can spend a whole lot of time going through them, but I'm getting the yellow flag that nobody else got before. And I don't think I can solve them all, but I know that I can work with the city staff, work with city employees, business leaders, the city commission, and state leaders, and we can create solutions, develop a plan, and fix our problems. In every adverse situation, there is an opportunity to succeed, and success comes from making the right choices. I hope you make the right choice. Thank you.
Thank you. We're sorry about that, Scott. We didn't have our timing machine up. From this angle, I thought maybe I couldn't see it. So, anyway, thank you for your opening remarks. I would just like to say the forum will go for about 90 minutes, and all of the questions were sent in ahead of time to the chamber. Question number 1 goes to Rod Landblum, and each commissioner will, or each candidate will answer. As commission president or mayor, how would you describe your role or function in the city government? And I would also like you to throw in there, what's your leadership style?
The position of the president obviously is very visible. It's one that creates that relationship between the administrative staff and the working staff of the city, as well as the state and federal authorities that we deal with. My management style tends to be kind of a military, where we delegation of that authority to the most competent people we have, and I think we have a very distinguished administrator and administrative staff. And I don't think that there's more than just a policy position in this regard, but I tend to be a little more interactive. I do believe in the Truman axiom that the buck stops here. But when you delegate and you take the responsibility for the activities that take place, I think that would pretty well outline where I'm coming from.
Scott Decker?
The role of the mayor, I look at it as being the voice of the people. And the people includes everybody within the city proper, the extraterritorial zone, and importantly, the employees of the city, because sometimes they need somebody to go to. And I learned as commissioner, I get a lot of calls from city employees because it's not so much complaints about anything in general. They just sometimes need some place to vet. And you have to be that person to sit there and listen and understand where they're coming from. My leadership role, well, or style, I guess I could say from the military too, but I'm not quite all militaristic in my leadership style. I think you mentor and guide people, you manage items, and people are not items. So to me, it's you need to cultivate a good culture throughout the city, and then everybody is happy.
Thank you. Let's move on to Clayton Altman.
All right. You know, we use the term commission president and mayor interchangeably, but they really aren't the same. The way that our government is set up here in Dickinson is when you're the commission president, you actually have no authority unless you are partnered with the other 4 members of the commission. So you aren't going in and making hiring and firing choices or interacting with each of the other departments. That's why we have a city manager. That's why we have department heads. Our job is to be the voice of the people, to look at all sides of the issue that employees and staff bring before us, research that, and make a good, informed decision based on the biggest benefit to the entire community. And I think that my leadership style would be to be open-minded, to be fair, and to be balanced, and to look out for the best interests of our citizens.
Thank you. We'll move on to our second question, and Scott Decker will start. As commission president or mayor, you'll be asked to be involved in lobbying the legislature on behalf of the city. What talents or skills do you have that would make you an effective lobbyist?
Well, a little known fact about me, in the military, I worked in weapon development for 2.5 years, and I was the spokesman for the Army for that period of time. I basically went out, I worked for an agency called TRADOC System Manager, and my job was to go before Congress and go before industry officials and convey to them what the Army needed in new equipment, be it benefits. Mostly it was about weapon systems though. And we had to go in front of the, like I said, Congress. We went in front of staff, and it led me to an area where I understood that you have to be able to get in with the group and work as a unit to get things done. We ran one of the biggest programs, Land Warrior, and it was very successful until budget cutbacks, and then we had to go away from that. And that happens. That's happening now in the legislature. So you have to deal with not having money sometimes, and then you have to go from there.
Clayton?
Yeah. I have a degree in secondary education, and the emphasis was in speech and journalism. And so communication is my forte. It's something that I've used in every position that I've had. From this position and with the legislature, I think one of the reasons that Dickinson's been so strong in securing funding is from the city, we've had a plan from the beginning, and we have been able to document our need. And I think the most important thing is to be able to express that need in a logical manner, clear communication, and making sure that you have the documentation to back it. And we compete with Williston, Minot, Watford City. On this western side of the state, we're always in competition to secure that funding. I think having a strong voice with a clear communication set is going to be what Dickinson needs moving forward.
Thank you. Rod?
In my 40 years of working with local government, I had the opportunity to interact with state and federal officials at all levels. I've been able to convey my interest to U.S. senators, to cabinet level officials, as well as to our legislative branch and to our executive branch as far as the concerns and issues that face Southwest North Dakota. I think I have that ability to interact more on a personal basis than probably standing up and leading the charge in front of the legislature. But I think that back room or that personal interaction probably has more positive results and prove to be positive in the long run. I think I have that ability to convey that in a political sense.
Okay, thank you. Question number 3, and Clayton, you will start on this one. The city of Dickinson had to invest in different types of infrastructure for the oil activity starting in 2007 in the Bakken. The city now has a $1 million plus debt to deal with. What are your thoughts, and how would you plan on dealing with this debt?
Sure. You know, when you look back at the infrastructure and some of the projects that we completed, I think one of the biggest projects was the wastewater treatment facility. And we built it smart. It has expansion so that if the community continued to grow, that we would be able to meet those needs. It's also the right size for where we're at now. And literally, it's a breath of fresh air this spring to have a new wastewater treatment facility and not to deal with the smell that we've had in the past. But all of that came with expense, $100 million in debt, $4.5 million a year in payments on that debt. We have five primary resources for income: sales tax, property tax. A big lion's share comes from the state, and so now more than ever it's going to be important that we make our case and continue to make our case to the state. And it's going to have to be a strong, compelling case because the other communities in western North Dakota are in the same boat that we are.
Thank you. Rod?
Infrastructure in our communities and our counties is an ongoing problem. I don't care how many projects we throw out there, we're always going to face some type of issue or concerns. A lot of it falls back on operation and maintenance and making sure that we have current and updated infrastructure to go along with our developments. So the fact that we're dealing with infrastructure from everything from roads to water and sewer to lift stations, etc., become very paramount, and it becomes a priority situation in a lot of cases. But you can only go so far with priorities because of maintenance and making sure those things are operational is highly important. Making sure that we budget and meet those demands for maintenance and the expansion of our infrastructure is important. And we have to keep in mind where we are with the budget and how we can afford it and where are we going to be with it in 10, 20, 30 years. So we have to be very cognizant of what happens out there when we add new facilities.
Okay, thank you. Scott?
Right now, the city has a plan in place, and they are servicing our debt through the vehicles that Commissioner Altman mentioned. But I do think dealing with the debt in the long run, what is going to be paramount is that we don't take on any projects that stress the budget any more than it possibly can be stressed. And going down to the state legislature, competing for those dollars is going to be a priority in this next legislative session. As it goes, like I said, back to the continuing development and the improvement of our infrastructure, we have to do it, but at the same time, we can't take on anything that stresses us. And that would put a bigger burden on the people of Dickinson that are staying here.
Okay, thank you. And this is kind of a follow-up to that. Are there any changes that you would advocate when it comes to the state sharing revenue with oil-impacted communities like Dickinson? Is there something that you think that should be changed from what we're currently doing? This is your opportunity to take a shot at me. Rod?
I think that if we take a look at what has been accomplished in the last biennium, really helped us out basically with the surge bill that helped, and then the hub cities, et cetera. and then the distribution of our oil production tax really provided us an opportunity to make those expansions, to make those investments without too much care. Now we're on the downside of this thing, and we're looking at a legislature that might be a little more negative about providing us that opportunity. We're not going to see a surge bill again that gives us that one-time funding, and we're going to have to fight pretty hard to become, to maintain that hub city designation with Williston and Minot, and make sure that we get our 30% share of those particular funds. But if we take a look at those type of investments and make sure that that partnership continues, I think is where going to be our main goal in this regard.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, Scott.
The formula I wish that would have happened was the original, what Senator Wardner, I think, proposed at the beginning of the legislature last year. I know that was a long shot, but he put it out there, tried to get it for us. The thing that's going to come down to is the legislature, and correct me if I'm wrong, set aside the rainy day fund 4 years ago in that area. And this was set aside for a reason, and I think they're very prudent doing that. And we might be coming upon those rainy days. So it's going to be one of those things that we have to sell to get our share of money out of that rainy day fund if they do tap it. Now, I don't know if they're going to. Oil comes up to $50 a barrel, we're all singing a different tune. Development's going to happen again. But we do have to be down at the legislature, and we have to be at the forefront of voicing our needs.
Okay, our next question.
Tell me.
One more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's okay, Rich.
I thought you had answered.
I had not.
Go ahead.
Having been on the commission and working through our budgets, I can look at you, Rich, and say thank you. You helped out our community and the communities in Southwest North Dakota, and I think you're our biggest ally moving forward. So would I change things? I would, but you know what? You and your team, and I see them out in the audience, were so approachable, and you stuck up for this side of the state, and I would just compel and implore you to keep doing the work that you did. You made our job a lot easier as the city commission. You helped us keep a balanced budget through the biggest expansion in our community's history, and a lot of that is going to rest back on you and your team's shoulders. We can certainly bend your ear, but you are actually the one that we're going to have to count on to step up and be able to deliver for Southwest North Dakota.
Thank you. Question number 5, and we'll start with Scott. What is the most important issue facing Dickinson other than debt?
Most important issue, I think, that is paramount is that we keep Dickinson very family friendly. Make it a place that in the future, when oil does come back, other industries come here, that families want to move here. We don't want man caps. We don't want a bunch of single guys living in apartments. We want them to take their families and bring them back to this community and help us grow. By them coming back here and setting down a foothold, it gives everybody an opportunity, and it spreads for us a little bit more diversity in our community over the long run. It brings new restaurants, it brings new retail opportunities, it brings new kids for our kids to be in school with, and they get to broaden their horizons. So I think that is right up there with, and then also with the safety of the city. Keeping it safe, keeping our law enforcement and fire departments fully funded and staffed so they can provide that quick response for us.
Okay. I think the second biggest challenge beyond financial is maintaining quality of life here in Dickinson, and that means not taking our foot off of economic development, making sure that we are continually expanding our the number of jobs that we have in this community, and that they're not all related to oil, so that we can weather a downturn like this. I think planned systematic growth, both infrastructure-wise and community-wise, expanding our retail, and then making sure that we maintain the high level of public service. And that does include our fire, our police, our trash collection, sewer, infrastructure, all of the services that you rely on and that seem to happen seamlessly. When you call 911, somebody answers. Those all come with a cost, and it's going to be very important that we maintain that quality of life so that we can continually attract new industry and new people to our community.
Rod?
If you take a look at the underlying drift of my campaign, you'll see that I'm trying to push and maintain a premier community attitude. I don't think necessarily because things have slowed up a little that we have to retract. We're looking at some major investments along the way. We've got some major projects out there that are attractive to newcomers as to well as our existing population. And I think that we have to keep that in mind as we make our decisions. It's nice to be able to just pull back and say, well, take that deep breath, but then at the same time, we can't lose the sight of where we're heading as far as our development and what we want this community to look like.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next question. Clayton, you'll start this one. What are some issues the commission did or approved within the last fiscal year that you probably disagreed with, and why?
That is an interesting question, Rich. I would say that when we revamped our contracts with the CVB and Stark County Development, I would say that that was a mistake. One of the reasons that we had lowered our commitment to them was because it was based on sales tax numbers, and they were getting the lion's share, and their budgets kept increasing when we were at almost 100% employment and we were at 100% occupancy. Thinking that the upturn would last longer. Now we have 30% occupancy in our hotels, and we have 4.2% unemployment. Now we are going to be forced to revitalize those two entities and help them bring the numbers back up so that we have sustainable lodging and economic development.
Okay, thank you. Rod?
From my standpoint, I think one of the biggest drawbacks was not taking a look at the reforecasting a lot earlier than what the city already had done. We were far into 2016 before the consideration of updating and revising the budget. I think that we knew there was a downturn coming, or we could see the economic trend, and that perhaps maybe that would have been a time that we could actually have done something a little earlier and readjusted the budget and brought some of these issues to a head at that point rather than later.
Scott?
Well, I think it's well known on the commission. I'm not a big fan of some of the costs that we incurred on some of our projects from the aspect of engineering and construction oversight. I do think that needs to be tightened a little bit. I think everybody's tightening their belt, and in the future, those engineering firms and construction firms are also going to have to come in line to the spending that we're going to have. Another thing that I know was documented when they were changing, we wanted to change the rule for the amount of liquor licenses that anybody could own. And I'm pretty much a free market guy, and if you want to put up the money and you want to buy a liquor license, more power to you. I'm not for turning anybody off or not taking their money.
Thank you. Our next question, and Rod, you'll start on this one. What is your position on the annexing of the industrial area on the north end of Dickinson that has no public services?
We're talking about that up by 40th Street.
Yes.
in that area. I was on the commission at the time that we annexed that. It's unfortunate that the public services or the water and sewer systems that were conveyed were not put in at that point. But I think that at that point in time, though, the annexation was a very positive move. We take a look at the businesses that were there, where the direction the community was moving, et cetera. I believe that that annexation process itself was a positive move. It then unable to provide for the infrastructure, though, obviously is an overriding concern at this point. I don't have a real answer to how we're going to address some of that, especially to the east of Highway 22 in there.
Okay, thank you. Scott?
The question was, did I think it was right or wrong, the north annexation?
Well, it just, what's your position?
I think it was a mistake, but that's my position. I wasn't on the commission at the time, but now we have to deal with it, and what we need to do is provide them the opportunity to get those services, and I think we're gonna have to work with them, and the city staff is coming up with a plan, and last I had heard that the city engineer had something, and we might have to hold off because of our budget constraints this year. So down the road, we are gonna provide them with the services. It's just not as quick as some had hoped.
Okay, Clayton?
You have to remember, that was our first annexation. And when we did that, we were thinking that that was going to be at least 5 or 10 years out, that it would be a slow, progressive growth, but that is where new industry and new businesses would want to locate. And if you look at the infill between Coca-Cola and Walmart, and you look at the oil companies that ended up building huge facilities there, you look at the hub, you look what went into that, would those oil companies have located in Dickinson? Would the expansion have taken place? Again, we were against the gun thinking that this was a longer term process, a 5 to 10 year process that we'd be able to garner the money to do a slow and logical expansion. 2012 came and everything broke loose. There's some corrections that'll need to be made, and we will do that as a city.
Thank you. It's interesting that you'd bring up infield. So the next question, Scott, it starts with you. Do you believe the city should continue to expand its footprint or emphasize an infilling with the existing city limits?
I think we should fill within the existing city limits. We have a lot of plotted land right now over by Sachs Motors to the east there. That is all plotted for development. We have a couple of areas on the east side of town that still can be filled in. And we have the Roars addition out there that can be filled in, and there's brand new houses going up. I don't think we should expand anymore until we fill what is currently inside the city limits.
Okay, Clayton?
Yeah. Currently, we have 7,000 platted but unfilled lots in our community, which is a great deal of infill that needs to take place. I wouldn't be for any more annexation right now. We are getting pressure to annex at the new exit 56, because they want city services, they want to put a truck stop out there. That's out past Menards, and until we start filling in what we have and what we have platted, we have a 2035 plan. We have almost 20 more years of growth mapped out. We do not need to be annexing or expanding our boundaries at this point until we can fill in what we have.
Okay. Rod?
Alluding to the 7,000 platted units that Clayton was just talking about, you know, we're looking at both residential, commercial, and industrial sites in that regard. It doesn't seem practical for us to continue to expand beyond our city limits at this point. And I know there's 600 and some acres that are being proposed west of town here, all the way out to the new interchange, et cetera, that were being looked at for bringing into the community. But I don't think it's practical for us to make those investments based on my discussion about the infrastructure earlier, about trying to maintain what we do have, and then watching how we do expand and provide those services to our existing as well as any future growth. And I think that we can promote it that way.
All right, thank you. Our next question, Clayton, will start. The city is considering adjusting the wages of the employees who received an increase due to the marketable nature of their skills. We have that in the state issue too. Should all the employees be treated the same?
Okay. You know, we did the adjustment to help retain employees and to try to keep up with the cost of living. As we have recalibrated our 2016 budget, we asked each department to come before us with cuts that they were willing to make, whether it be, you know, an unnecessary equipment, maybe not hiring somebody. I would be opposed to doing away with the adjustments that we made. People are depending on the amount that they are making right now. So rather than take those away to rebalance the budget, I'd rather move forward with our next budgeting cycle, and instead of giving a larger increase in overall pay, take into account what adjustments were made, counterbalance that so that they aren't going backwards. I think that's a recipe for disaster when you ask an employee to go backwards in their current earnings when we have a way to adjust it moving forward.
Rod?
Those skilled positions that were provided that opportunity for increased pay obviously was done at a time when there was high competition. There's some adjustment that's been made now with the revised budget, you know, and it was a minor cut, I think something like 20 cents an hour or something that was retracted from those skilled positions. But I too think that you have to take a look at the morale and the welfare and the positive attitudes that the city employees provided to us. And I think that it becomes behooving to us to keep in mind that they have a family to raise, they have their own welfare and concern, and we don't want to necessarily defeat that or put it into a negative connotation. So I too probably would look at, you know, taking a look at it, the new budget from a benchmark standpoint, and then taking a look at how we make those adjustments when we have to face the increase in wages or competition for wages later on.
Thank you. Scott?
The adjustment of wages, and I think some of the concern is that some departments at the beginning of the year took a wage decrease of 10 cents at the beginning of the year, January 1st. Well, now with this additional 20 cents that is being proposed, not only are they going to get their 10 cents from the beginning, they're going to get an additional 20 cents tacked on. And for me, I agree with the 20 cents, but I think that they shouldn't be asked to lose an additional 10 cents. In grand scheme of things, it doesn't seem like a lot, but at the same time, I think it should be equitable across the board. If one takes a cut, everybody takes a cut. And in the future, when we go to the budgeting process here in the fall, we can look at that skill-based pay and see if it's a necessity to keep the skill base at that level to retain them.
Okay. Thank you. Rod, we'll start with this one. It says, do the police, fire departments have an adequate budget to do their job? And are there specific areas of concern that you may have regarding emphasis area for the police and fire departments? And this one will give you 2 minutes to answer it if you want to take it.
Please, because this is an important element or a subject in my campaign here. I think the public safety entities we have in our community are important. You take a look at the full-time staff. We've gone from 3 full-time staff now of a few years ago to 14. That indicates that there's a real need in the fire department, this fire department I'm talking about, plus a very bona fide volunteer program we have out there. And so we have to make sure that the personnel are available, as well as the equipment and the training that needs to go along with it. From the police standpoint, I know that if you take a look at the news tonight, there's a new push for adding 5 to 7 more police officers, and they're using mass media or Facebook to try and encourage that. The police department needs that type of encouragement, and contrary to what you want to think, Dickinson really does have a rising drug problem, and we're going to have to address it in realistic terms. And that means a cooperation of other resources such as the county, the Southwest Task Force, and the city of Dickinson, plus our neighboring communities. We have to deal with issues such as the drug problem